Anna Mendieta's work is often difficult to describe just because it is so untraditional and unique. Most artists create objects that we can continually visit and look at, but Mendieta created experiences that often disappeared almost as soon as they were made. Her work feels mysterious, spiritual, and incredibly emotional. While her life story greatly inspired and guided her art, I want this presentation to focus on the whimsy of her work and why it continues to affect people decades later. While this assignment is not meant to be a biography, I do think it's crucial to acknowledge a few experiences that molded her. These moments were significant and provide a great insight into her work and why she turned to art in the first place. Mendieta was sent from Cuba to the United States as a child. She was separated from her family and spent years feeling disconnected from her homeland. This intense yearning for connection brings a whole new meaning to her work. She was never just making pretty art about dirt and trees. She was searching for somewhere to belong. Conrad James argues that understanding who Mendieta was as a person makes the artwork that much richer, and I completely agree. Once you know about her displacement, her repeated return to the earth feels less symbolic and more deeply personal. This is some of the work that she is probably the most famous for. It's called the Silhouette series. And instead of painting landscapes, she placed her own body into them. Sometimes she carved a silhouette into the dirt. Sometimes she filled it with flowers, sometimes leaves, fire, or even blood red pigment. What really fascinates me is that the body is often absent. We don't actually see Anna, we see the place where she was. It almost feels like the earth is remembering her. I love that these pieces were not meant to last. The rain washes them away, wind erases them. They existed only for a short moment, almost like memories. So, not all of Mendieta's work is peaceful. Some of it is intentionally difficult to look at. She recreated scenes of violence against women to force viewers to confront things that society often ignored. I really appreciate that she wasn't interested in making comfortable art. Daniel Tan writes that her performances deal with violence, spirituality, death, and rebirth all at the same time. Even in these darker works, I don't think she is celebrating the suffering. I think she's asking us not to look away from it. This here is probably my very favorite part of her work. She treats natural materials almost like characters instead of objects. Fire isn't just fire, it becomes life and death. Flowers become tenderness, mud often becomes rebirth. Emily Labarge describes her work as emotional, and I think that is the exact right word. That and magical. Looking at these images makes me feel like I'm reading an old myth or even witnessing some forgotten ceremony. This is where the whimsy comes in for me, and that's what makes her work so important. It's not whimsical in a playful or fairy tale sense, but magical in the sense that nature suddenly feels sacred again. So, this is something that really surprised me while I was researching her. Despite how influential she's been, Catherine Spencer has done lots of research and she discusses how Mendieta's work is still missing from so many museums that claim to celebrate diversity. It's really ironic because her work has inspired generations of artists, and yet in so many museums and other places of art, her work is not there. And I think that her absence says just as much about the art world as her presence does. So, this is the slide that feels the most personal because these are my two very favorite pieces of hers. The piece on the left is called Creek, and the piece on the right is actually untitled. So the longer I sit with these pieces, the more entranced I feel. There's something about the foggy and a little bit mystical setting on her camera. They feel unfocused, a little unclear. It feels like it's an entirely different world, almost a fantasy world. And I think that these qualities show exactly how she feels about nature and why she wants to become part of it and how it becomes her own sacred space, how it becomes a place different from the world she is used to, a place where that she can belong. And I think part of this is achieved because her work isn't just trying to impress us technically. Even though it's very beautifully composed, I feel like it's trying to make us feel connected to something older than ourselves. Her art reminds me that people are not separate from nature, we're part of it. And somehow she communicates that with little more than dirt, leaves, fire, and the outline of a human body.